Okay, fantastic. We are live. I'm so excited to be here with Anthony, our second go around. But I'm so excited to be here this Friday. Welcome, welcome. So, Anthony, if you can introduce yourself and let everybody know exactly what you do and who you best serve, and we'll just dive right into this beautiful conversation this Friday.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. My name is Anthony. I help reverse ADHD. I'm quite passionate about mental health. Um, what I do is related to training the state of flow. And flow is only a state that can happen when we are focused. So it has to do with productivity and neuroscience without making any compromises around uh, personal values or forcing yourself, burning out, and protecting your mental health. So that's
Fantastic.
the summary.
The summary. We'll definitely dive deeper into it. I'm always curious to hear more about what got people on this path, especially as a coach. So if you could share with everyone what got you on this path of coaching and just share a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, the long story short, I've been solving my personal problems out of survival and wanting to reach goals. I used to be obese as a teenager. I used to struggle with relationships. And although I was okay at school and work, those were big problems for me. So as I started solving those problems, I also uncovered things I was passionate about and discovered that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, partly because I wanted my life to be a bit more music festival influenced and a bit less 9 to 5-ish. And so this leads to the story of how I found coaching. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with my entrepreneurship, but I joined a business coaching program, social media marketing course, essentially. But as a part of that, I got to attend a live event where a seven-figure type of coach asked one powerful question, and I'll ask what that question was. It was, in one sentence, tell me your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And at that time, I was actually, my business idea was freelance data analyst or like engineering consulting type of stuff. And as soon as I was asked that question, I realized I had no answer to it. I had no answer as to why, at least no answer in one sentence. So I was stuck in a kind of freeze, but thoughtful freeze for a second. And my mind and body just naturally took the pencil and wrote one sentence. And that sentence was, I want to help and inspire people. And that became my why. That's been my why since. So then after I got to that, my brain started going, oh my God, I've got it. I've got it now. Now I can reverse engineer from that why and build from ground zero. And I realized I want to do that. I want to do the same thing that just happened to me. I'm going to do that.
I love how
Yeah,
you put that reverse engineer from that point. That is so powerful. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel
pleasure.
inclined to ask, has your life become more music festival inspired?
It has, yeah. I set myself that objective in 2017 when I went to my first camping music festival. And I'm happy to say in 2023, I spent 4 months living in a tent, going from one festival to the next. I've done 12 or 13 events this last summer, and it was amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. I want to
Yeah.
take you back for a moment. You mentioned that when you were in high school, you were obese. That's obviously a very different physical state than where you're living today in your body. Was there anything that like clicked in your mind that you were like, okay, enough is enough, I need to change? Or like what happened that like what was a pivotal change in your life that made you say, okay, now is the moment that I can no longer stay in this state?
It was always happening in milestones, to be honest. Apologies. This is an alarm that I have.
All good.
It happened in milestones. I knew as coaches, we know that there are things that we don't know, and the journey is about discovering that. So I think I had a few rounds of losing 10 kilos at a time that happened in different phases. One was from forcing myself in my teenage years in high school. One was the transition into college, and then one was a book that I read called The End of Dieting. Each of these stages kind of gave me tools to deepen on that journey.
Interesting, interesting. Interesting how you the first phase started with forcing yourself. So often that trickles into other parts of our lives as well. How we want the change and we force it, and then we figure out that that doesn't work, or at least it's not sustainable. So I appreciate you.
Not sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What
and I had a lot of blind spots
Mm,
around health and fitness at that time, but I didn't know any better way than to try that.
makes a lot of sense. What advice would you give to those that might be in that stage in their life, whether it's with health and fitness or other areas where they want to change, they feel that sense of stuckness, so they're ready to get out of that state, but they may not necessarily know how, and so they're doing what you did at first, which is the forcing to change. What advice would you give?
It's a difficult question. I would say keep trying different things. The more you try different things, the more you'll find things that are more specific that will put you on the path to finding that thing which is going to change everything.
Okay. And what would you say was the most powerful thing that worked for you?
For me, to be honest, the in my health journey, it was linking the value of longevity to things that were not related to external appearances. So it was shifting my motivation from extrinsic based, meaning things like goals and status, to intrinsic based, meaning coming from within. This is actually one of the principles of flow. The more you're aligned with your intrinsic motivations, the more effortless everything else gets. And so for me, it was about realizing the links between all of the stuff related to health and me possibly living a shorter life. So it was like, I need to solve this problem ASAP, and I need to be consistent uh, in remaining it's solved.
That makes a lot of sense. So just changing the way you look at things and the things you look at change is what it sounds like.
Exactly. And in my story, that mental click just happened when I read some doctor's article. It might have even been an article from the doctor who wrote The End of Dieting. I don't remember. It could have been a totally different one. It could have been something like, oh, study shows that obesity increases risk of dying 5 to 10 years earlier. And I thought, oh shit, let me check that out. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then as soon as you read or hear that, you go, the prospect of either not meeting future kids or grandchildren, or if you meet them, like in my personal story, my grandfathers both died. One died before I was born, and one
Mm,
died when I was less than 1 or 2 years old. So I never
wow.
met them. And for me, that strikes a chord because I don't want to be that. I want to meet the grandchildren.
That's very
Yeah.
powerful. Sometimes we don't think that far ahead. I
We
appreciate you
don't.
sharing that. Yeah.
We don't. And this is why one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the stuff that I do around flow states, because maybe on a surface level, it increases focus and productivity. But on a deep, deep, deep level, it reduces the chances of getting Alzheimer's or schizophrenia. I mean,
Wow.
these are like protecting your mental health, protecting your focus, understanding your brain. You know, it might be the difference between being 90 and functional mentally or being in an Alzheimer's unit. And that for me is where my passion comes now, at least like nowadays.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I would love to talk more about the science stuff. I
Yeah.
have epilepsy myself, so all of the brain stuff very deeply interests
Um,
me, and I'm always on the hunt for the latest when it comes to health and wellness, and especially when it comes to the brain. So I'm curious if we could start with first off, you just explaining what a flow state is for those that may not fully
yeah.
understand what that means.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great place to start. Um, Stephen Kotler defines flow as a state where we feel our best and perform our best, the optimal state of consciousness. Now that might or might not be helpful. The way to think about flow is if you remember at some point in your past and take 30 seconds to think about the answer to this question. What activity did you spend 3, 4, 5 hours doing? And at the end of that 3, 4, 5 hours, you came out of it feeling like it was half an hour or 1 hour, you know, a lot less time than what had actually gone by. I think we all have an activity that we've experienced that. You know, it could have been art, it could have been writing, it could have been dancing or any sport. It could have also been something really cognitive. Like I used to get it doing math or putting together presentations. So that is the characteristic of a flow state, and that is yeah, that feeling, that activity, that's flow.
So how do we get into flow and how do we stay in flow?
So it's a tricky one because it's such a huge there are many factors. In my process, I've identified I have a 23 points scoring sheet that I use. One of the important concepts is the more the activity relates to your intrinsic motivation, your passion, your purpose, feeds your curiosities, the more you'll heighten the chances of it leading to a deeper flow state. But there are also other ways in which we can trigger it. You might have heard of the Pavlovian experiment conditioning the dog with the bell. When you ring the bell, the dog starts to salivate. Um, in a similar way as that kind of conditioning, you can actually create personal flow triggers. When I put a certain playlist on or a certain type of music, I'm much more likely to get into flow when that music is on. So that's a personalized flow condition. And anyone can create that for themselves, but it's just such a wide, there's so many options of what can be done. And I'll say, so I spoke a bit about motivation being one of the things. The other really critical thing is your physiological state.
Mm.
The more well rested, well hydrated, exercised, and well fed nutritionally you are, the more your baseline of flow will increase, your flow proneness. And on top of that, the stronger you believe in yourself, the stronger you believe in your plan for your life, and the more of a growth mindset you have, the stronger the chances of getting into flow. So we've already, in the last 2 minutes, we've identified a good chunk of these fundamentals of getting into flow, and we can see that it's such a wide scope.
Yeah. Wow. That's exciting. So it sounds
It
like
is.
it's similar to what you said before, just experimenting and kind of figuring out what triggers that for you. So that's very helpful. Have you found there's like a couple of go-to things besides music that universally will get people in a flow state, just based off of your experience working with clients?
Universally, there are flow triggers. One of the very important ones is the balance of challenge and skill. So the task that you are working on has to be of the right size and not too hard and not too easy, not too frustrating, not too boring. There's a sweet spot to hit where there's a bit of a challenge, and that in itself can be a universal way to trigger flow quite easily. If you master one skill in productivity, it's the ability to size your tasks and your goals relative to that challenge and skill balance in such a way that it drives you enough without setting yourself up for failing to accomplish the goal.
Okay.
So that's yeah, complete concentration. Um, there's a few prerequisites for flow. If you keep getting interrupted and disrupted by external things, that's gonna be a flow killer. And there's quite a few flow blockers like that. So avoiding the flow blockers and being completely in a space where you can focus and achieve complete concentration, mixed with the right size of a challenge to do. That's a great combination to start.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. So
Pleasure.
of course, I want to kind of steer the conversation just a little bit before we wrap up, and just talk a bit about your spiritual journey. And if you could just enlighten us with what that looked like for you. Have you always been on this path, or was that something that kind of happened along the way? So just whatever you'd like to share, I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I would say in the beginning, before my first festivals and around the time I was starting to go to festivals, there was a lot of overlap with substances, of which psychedelics. And I'd done probably 6 months of psychedelics with no problem whatsoever. I was doing them every week or every other week. And through psychedelics, I was able to realize that there is much more than meets the eye to this world, to this existence, to being, and to perception itself. So that sparked the kind of curiosity to go, well, wait a minute, if you know, there's much more to life. Okay. Fast forward a few months, interestingly, I'm not going to go into the details of what led to this, but I experienced mania and psychosis. So I was hospitalized once for 9 days in 2017. And then I stabilized, and then I went back into the working world. And then I was hospitalized again in 2019 for a month this time. The 2019 time was particularly relevant for my spiritual journey because I had just started a new phase of life, a new job in a new city for just 7 weeks. And that's when I had the psychosis again. And it made me lose that job. It made me lose my place in that big city. It made me lose a relationship with the person I was living with. And it led me back to my parents' place as I was recovering. And not only that, it was the start of COVID when I was starting to feel better. So on one hand, I was getting ready to go back into the world. I had a plane ticket booked to go for a job interview. And then 2 days before it happens, I get an email saying, because of COVID, we're no longer hiring. And so it's like,
Oh,
oh God, okay. Life is putting me here. There's something I need to learn. And through the time that I was spending, I was having conversations, and a friend of mine pointed me to two spiritual books. And that's when I started going deeper into more Eastern spiritual philosophies. Um, the one significant book that really for me tied spirituality with my journey was I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj. Um, Through reading that book, I started meditating a lot more. And over time, since 2020 and until now, I've been seeing more and more that the mental health healing journey and the spiritual journey are like two strands of a DNA. They're like intertwined and linked. The deeper I go into one, the deeper I go into the other. And I can happily say that it's been more than 3.5 years now that I've been symptom-free from the bipolar, and I've reduced the medication that I've been put on in October or in December 2019 by 80% to this day. I'm only taking 80%, or yeah, I'm only taking 20% of the medication today that I was taking 3.5 years ago. And for me, spirituality was a part of that healing, for sure.
wow. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your vulnerability and openness. I know that can be very challenging. So I really appreciate you being willing to share that with our community. What advice would you give to anyone that's kind of going through something similar that you went through those few years ago?
There's a line that I often tell people, and it's this: if it exists, then by definition, it's not breaking any existential rules. And
Can
so, whatever your experience is, you know, if your experience is psychosis and a hallucination, and 99.9% of the population is telling you, there's something wrong with you, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. That 0.1% is the fact that it happened. It happened is big, the fact that it happened doesn't break any existential rules. The universe is still here. We are still here. You are still here. And so because it happened, it's a testimony that you can follow your intuition. You can not give in to the stigma or what we think we know, because the truth is there is a lot more that we don't know than what we do know. And so whatever your situation may be is a situation that exists, and it's a legitimate situation. It could be really hard. It could be really terrible, but there are valid reasons for it being. And those reasons and you are not breaking any existential rules. You are allowed to be, and it's liberating. It should be liberating to be allowed to be.
Mm, that's very powerful. Wow. I appreciate that. I really feel the weight of your words as you say them. So I hope that they resonate with someone who might be watching and might be going through this. So often we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and it's not often that people have the courage to share that part of their journey, or they might be going through that and not sharing that. So I really appreciate your words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So as we wrap up our chat today, I would love for you to share with us a little bit more about exactly who you best serve with your offer now that you have stepped into coaching and you're helping others along the path. And as you said in your own words, your why is to inspire people. So if you could share with us what it looks like to work with you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Of
I'm
course.
helping coaches, therapists, healers, and practitioners who are aligned in values and not only want to help themselves, but also help their clients. The fact that flow is such a multi-tool means it's helpful for everyone. And it's a hard decision for me to pick one type of profile. But the reason for helping coaches, therapists, and healers is because of the knock-on cascading effects that it would have. There's so much networking and also so much knowledge sharing between us practitioners. This is really knowledge that everyone in the world needs, whether they know it or not, to understand their own brain, to increase their productivity, to increase their learning, and not have to sacrifice, not have to force themselves, sacrifice personal values or anything like that. And so I've just launched a 12-week signature program. And in that program, I'm also adding 3 months of integration and implementation follow-up, as well as other bonuses. I really want to get the 80% of what I know to as many people as possible in 20% of the efforts. So I've taken an extensive, expensive training to learn 95% that there is about flow. And it's a bit of an overkill for most people, but that 80% in 20% of the efforts is really what should be taught in school. And so yeah, the program, the signature program is just launching now. I've been working on flow for a couple of years, and I've put together the most efficient way to get in flow as fast as possible in as little effort as possible. And that's what it covers. And if that could be done on a one-to-one basis or in a small group. The other option is joining me on a course, and it's the more do-it-yourself option for this stuff to be accessible. And other than that, it's let's connect and let's see what's best for you, because yes, you can buy that 23 point checklist and flow blockers as a self-evaluation kit, but then what? Um,
Yeah.
so, you can jump on that, but also let's chat instead. And I'd rather make sure that you are pointed in the right direction uh, of what's best for your own journey than to not be helped at all.
Perfect. It sounds like you have a lot of great options for folks. Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here and just getting to know you better and just diving deeper and into your story and what got you here. Any last words of wisdom that you would like to share before we wrap up?
Likewise, Tamisha, thank you for that.
Of course.
There's one thing that is really, really exciting to me right now, and that is Christopher Palmer's brain energy theory. I haven't fully read the book yet, but what he is proposing is a unifying theory for all mental health issues that goes down to the one connecting factor that links everything from biology to psychology, to environments. And it's not related to symptoms, and it's not relating to the degree of symptoms you have. It's down to the cell level. And what he's saying is it's all because of mitochondria. And it issue all of these potential root causes of mental health boil down to leading to an issue in cellular energy. And what he's saying is mental health illnesses are metabolic dysfunctions of the brain. For me, what this book is putting all of my life experience from being a obese teenager to still occasionally emotionally eating to this day, and everything from being diagnosed with bipolar and my ADHD symptoms, it's tying them all together in a way that validates my life experience. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that this is out there. And I have big hopes that we can maybe solve the mental health crisis, at least in theory, and get some of that result-wise happening in the next few decades and this lifetime. And my gosh, what a beautiful world that would be.
Absolutely. You just inspired another question now. It might be a little controversial, but
Not
I
at
don't know
all.
if you, yeah, I've been reading about this and I found it to be very interesting, and it's something I've kind of always lived by. I, for a very long time, didn't share with people that I had epilepsy because I felt like it would give it power, because I'm a big believer in words and what you say, and so I just kind of just wouldn't really share that. And it's not that I would deny that I had it, but it just felt like an identity, like, oh, I have epilepsy, right? So I'm just kind of
Hmm.
like, yeah, this is something that I have, but it doesn't define me. So that was a personal choice. And as I've gone on my journey, um, I read about this when it comes to like multiple personality disorder, bipolar, ADHD, that it's merely a symptom of something, trauma and something that happened in your life. It's not necessarily who you are. It's a label, but it's really a symptom of what happened. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on that and what you think. Do you feel the same, or what are your thoughts on that?
According to what I know, I would agree. And the reason is, from the studies we've seen, we know that physical health issues and mental health issues are bidirectionally related, meaning they both enhance each other, like make worse or make better. On top of that, that cluster of physical and mental health issues are both bidirectionally related to all the biology, what you eat, what you drink, how you rest, all of that, your stress, your trauma, your psychology, your relationships, your environment, your purpose in life. All of those things are also bidirectionally influencing physical and mental health. So from that perspective, it makes total sense. We just don't know enough about it yet. So yeah, I validate.
Yeah.
And and actually I think the reason that I shared the thing about the brain energy theory is partly because you mentioned epilepsy, and I wanted to connect epilepsy with other stuff as well, through that share. So it's a bit like mind reading, we could say. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. So thank you
Absolutely.
for.
Yeah, of course, of course. That's the purpose of these conversations, is just to get to know one another, and the amazing coaches that we have in this community. We have over 4,000 people in this community, and so that's really the purpose of these chats, is to give each and every one of you, hopefully eventually, right, a chance to share. And even if only just one thing resonates, that's what's so beautiful. And I've learned a lot just from chatting with you. So I really appreciate your time, all of your knowledge and expertise, and more importantly, your vulnerability and candidness for just being so open. I think that's what makes honestly Spiritual Coaches Network special, is that we're so open and candid and vulnerable and wanting to share, because ultimately, yes, I know we all are here wanting to share our offer and inspire others and share our gifts. But, if we're not willing to share our journey and be vulnerable and show folks what we've been able to do and how we've been able to transform our own lives, how are we going to be able to build that trust with potential clients? So I just really wanted to acknowledge you for that. So thank you again. And
Thank you.
anything else you'd like to
Likewise.
share? I just want to give you that last word.
Thank you so much. Wherever you are on your journey, keep going. Yeah,
Okay,
keep going.
beautiful. I love it. We'll end it there. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Anthony.
Tamisha.
And then is there anywhere in particular where folks can connect with you, or is there a best way to get in touch with you? If you would like to go ahead and plug yourself.
The best way would be a Facebook message, I would say. Yeah, I'll put a comment. You've got my links in the description of the event or wherever the recording will be. So yeah, that link, a message, or just tag me in a comment under this live, and I'll get back.
Perfect. Awesome. So just go ahead and tag him under a comment in this live and he'll get in touch. So thank you all for watching, and I look forward to connecting with one of you next time. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.